A deeper dive into the fiery debate in Richmond.
I think it stoked some racial tensions. It's not just one group, though.
A city council meeting makes national headlines, but will the contentious drug consumption site even materialize? Plus, teachers stretched to the limit.
We know that inclusive education works, but you really need to have it resourced properly in order for it to work.
Rising complaints that staff shortages mean students with special needs aren't getting the help they need. Also, irreversible damage.
It is a problem. The bud damage is substantial, greater than 90%.
Wineries in the Okanagan take stock of struggling vineyards following January's cold snap. Hi, I'm Tanya Fletcher. Thanks for joining us. Well, the dust is still settling from 2 days of raucous council meetings that made national news. Richmond City Hall has been the backdrop of vitriolic anger, offensive words, and scenes of turmoil this week. It comes after politicians last night voted 7-2 to explore the idea of a supervised consumption site in the city. But as Justin McElroy explains, whether it even sees the light of day remains a big question.
How did Richmond get from this, 500 views on YouTube, in a mostly empty room, to this?
The metaphors you use, yes, we've heard all those metaphors before off the internet. But I can tell you,
18,000 viewers, protests and police, councillors being accosted while they vote.
In favor, I've called the question. All in favor?
It started on January 30th, when the motion was put forward by two councillors. The phrase drug consumption site appeared 5 times in the motion, and one of the councillors who put it forward, Cash Heed, did plenty of interviews saying he thought a consumption site was a good idea.
This is what is needed versus letting the people consume their drugs in public spaces such as laneway, alcoves, benches, where it's in plain view of the public. These are the complaints that we've had, but we have a solution to it.
But Richmond can't build or operate a site. That falls to the provincial government through Vancouver Coastal Health. Despite that, some headlines didn't capture that nuance. That different impression soon moved on to social media and online petitions. At the committee level, the motion passed, moving it to the final stage. The headlines changed, but the controversy kept building. That led to Monday's committee meeting.
Hey, excuse me,
Where the chaos provoked more interest, including from the Conservative Party. But all along, the province hadn't shown an interest in creating a site, which Premier David Eby emphasized on Tuesday afternoon.
My understanding is that they're trying to get a better handle on why Richmond is bringing forward this proposal at this time, whether what's proposed actually meets the needs in Richmond, because from their perspective, this is not what is immediately needed in that city.
And by Tuesday night, many of the councillors in favor of the motion expressed surprise at the backlash.
I couldn't understand why so many people have come forward and are so upset. But then I went online and I found out what people are reading.
They still passed the motion. And on Wednesday, Vancouver Coastal Health once again affirmed that they did not endorse a drug consumption site. It means Richmond staff can study the issue, but it's unclear what this next step forward is, other than Richmond politicians dealing with a more divided community over a thing where nothing has been decided.
That's our Justin McElroy reporting. Let's continue our coverage with more on the fallout of that council decision. Mira Baines breaks down the emotional battle with a closer look at why it unfolded as it did.
I'm here in Richmond to explore why tensions escalated over a plan to explore setting up a supervised injection site.
councillors.
This was the scene last night as councillors were voting. A woman makes a beeline for Councillor Cash Heed. She was escorted out by RCMP. Heed had put the motion forward, which resulted in a 7-2 vote.
It all happening too fast, and I think it's required a little bit more explanation from City Hall.
This popular Chinese language commentator explains why it's such a lightning rod issue for many in the immigrant community. Hong Kong became a British colony in the 1800s when the British began smuggling opium into Chinese ports and causing widespread addiction.
Hong Kong, as well as people in China, for the past 100 years or so, are very, shall I say, under the shadow of drugs. We knew how drug can destroy a person. how drug can destroy a family and how drug can destroy a whole community and eventually weaken the whole country.
He says people have lots of questions and feel ignored, allowing misinformation to flourish. The city of Richmond did issue a statement saying no drugs would be given out to users at a potential site. This Richmond City Councillor, who changed her mind about the plan, points out the motion lacked information.
So it wasn't clear and straightforward. And certainly people getting it secondhand from someone who is translating it for them totally misunderstood it, perhaps, thinking it totally was coming in tomorrow morning. We were going to open up shop here in Richmond.
She suggests the city should be examining a broad range of options and says many people were upset.
I think it stoked some racial tensions. It's not just one group, though. I've heard from people all over the community, why are we asking for this? What are we doing? And they're from all different backgrounds.
The issue has been polarizing and politicians have waded in. This exchange caught on camera and retweeted by federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre. RCMP says it condemns this hate incident, but no criminal offense was committed. Community opposition against harm reduction has been making headlines elsewhere in the Lower Mainland. Most recently, the Yaletown overdose prevention site also attracted protests. While some of the reasons may be different, the polarization on the issue is the same. Mira Baines, CBC News, Richmond.
Parents and unions at Vancouver schools say understaffing has kids with special needs getting less help and workers stretched thin. They say school support assistants who help kids with special needs are facing bigger caseloads, and others in the system are having to step into regular classroom teaching on short notice. Our Liam Britton is hearing from parents who say their children are feeling the consequences of that staffing crunch.
Mira Orick is the mother of a neurodivergent grade 2 student in East Van. He has a student support assistant, or SSA, but she says too often when they are away, there's not enough backfill. She blames this lack of support for her son's anxiety. It's so bad it's leading to frequent absences.
Well, I want there to be more support workers so that families don't have to fight day in and day out to have their children receive the support that they have a right to have.
Hillary Thompson's daughter Cora is in grade 5 and has cerebral palsy. She gets SSA help as well for a number of tasks, but her mother agrees there are often not enough staff.
I think we're really concerned that, we know that inclusive education works. We know that it's good for kids with disabilities. It's good for the mainstream population, but you really need to have it resourced properly.
Thompson is with the Vancouver District Parent Advisory Council. The Parents' Council and 5 unions penned open letters this month highlighting what they say is understaffing in BC's second largest school district and the impact on kids with special needs.
So in addition to this reported shortage of SSAs, there's also what the unions are calling failures to fill. Now that's when a classroom teacher isn't adequately replaced by a substitute when they're away. Now the unions are saying that in too many cases, it's resource teachers who make special education a priority being called in to do these classroom teachers' jobs, pulling them away from the important work they ought to be doing.
Warren Williams with the SSA's union worries short staffing is causing violence when some kids with behavioral issues act out.
If they don't have consistency, they feel unsafe, and some tend to act out because they're feeling unsafe. That's it, they're just feeling unsafe.
Jody Polikoshko is with the Elementary Teachers Union. They tallied almost 1,300 self-reported failures to fill over 3 months, including over 900 where a resource teacher was pulled away from their job to fill in.
Teachers are afraid to take a sick leave because they know that what's going to happen is one of their colleagues will be pulled to cover their class and the students will lose service, and that's not fair.
The Vancouver School Board, however, said subs are called in the vast majority of cases, and resource teachers pitching in is a last resort. They say they're constantly hiring, but education is facing labor issues, and kids are always with a qualified educator. Parents like Orick say they want to see more done to hire and retain workers for kids like her son. She says there's a lot at stake.
Well, my child's education and his right and ability to be in school.
Liam Britton, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, today the March for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women descended on the streets of Vancouver's downtown east side. We went down to hear more about the personal reasons why so many people chose to march alongside thousands this year.
We are here to commemorate and honor the missing and murdered women.
My niece Cheryl and Joe was murdered on Salisbury and Paul Street in 1992. And this march was started on her behalf. All our women and all our young girls and the men and the young boys that are going missing, they need us.
Her name is Sherry Irvin.
My sister Nadine McMillan.
My sister Alberta.
The scary feeling in my life is that I have young, beautiful granddaughters that are coming into this world now, and I try not to think like that.
Because we matter. Indigenous people matter.
The BC government has announced supports to help protect farmers in the Fraser Valley's Sumas Prairie from future flooding. The province says it is spending nearly $77 million for flood resilience upgrades, specifically to the Barrowtown pump station in Abbotsford. That city's mayor says there is much work to be done and that Abbotsford has been waiting for federal funding ever since the devastating floods of 2021. Premier David Eby says the province is keeping up pressure on the feds.
We know the federal government does move, but it does move slowly. And so we're keeping the pressure on them to show up with the money that they committed to when they were responding in the initial days of the flood, both around recovery, but also around prevention.
The upgrades announced today include adding a 6-meter flood wall to help prevent the station from shutting down if the Sumas Prairie floods again. In the interior, BC's wine industry is in for a season of catastrophic crop loss this year. Experts say that prolonged cold snap in January damaged vineyards right across the Okanagan Valley. And as Brady Strachan is finding out, that could mean hundreds of millions of dollars in lost revenue.
You can see the cracking.
The prognosis is grim. Severe winter damage in vineyards across the Okanagan. Gordon Fitzpatrick's vines at his winery near Summerland were not spared.
And taking this wood and spur pruning that, and then so we're kind of hedging our bets, right? And see what pushes.
An extreme cold snap in January is the culprit. Temperatures dropped below -25 degrees right across the Okanagan and killed off many of the buds that would have been this year's wine grape crop.
Damage is substantial, greater than 90%. So both the primary and secondary buds, most of them are dead, they're discolored. And so that has everybody worried about what's going to happen in the spring and how many tons are we going to have in the vineyards up and down the Okanagan Valley.
The low temperature, and you can see it got down to -30, but more.
A new report by the BC wine industry predicts catastrophic crop loss this year across the valley, with only 3% of a normal harvest. This on the heels of last year's severe season that saw only half the expected harvest.
Well, back-to-back and consecutively like that is the perfect storm. So it's worrisome. I think it just speaks to the challenges of climate change.
And with little or no grapes expected this year, the industry is projecting substantial losses across the board.
Yeah, well, without that crop, it looks as though it could be up to almost $500 million. And so that's just the impact of wages and, again, tourism. And tourism means hotel stays and restaurants.
The province has already invested millions of dollars in a replant program for grape growers. Some in the industry are asking for help in the short term.
Wineries are going to be running out of wine. So there's been some discussions about, well, can we, on an emergency basis, outsource from other regions such as Ontario or Washington State, Oregon.
That is something not currently allowed for wines carrying the VQA designation and would require governments to make significant regulatory changes. Brady Strachan, CBC News, Summerland.
It's not just grapes either. Cherry growers are also bracing for another uncertain year as January's deep freeze leaves its mark.
It's unprecedented what's happened, and we're looking for government to come up with some extraordinary solutions to make sure that we can continue farming in this valley.
He says young cherry buds across BC's interior were damaged by the cold snap in January, and that was immediately following a stretch of warmer weather. This meant fruit trees like cherries and peaches weren't able to develop that winter hardiness. While the full extent of the damage isn't yet clear, it's believed this could be the most challenging season that growers have seen in a lifetime. It is Valentine's Day, and what better day for couples to reminisce on their first encounters. We hit the streets to find out how Vancouverites met their sweethearts.
Well, we met in China. We came there to work at school, and he was the first. And then I came there, and he helped me to make some documents for the school. So he helped a lot, and I was so thankful, you know.
So busy explaining different aspects of Chinese life and documents.
Yeah, he was helping me how to find some shops or foods or anything, because China is very different. And then, you know, one day, 1 week, 1 month, and we fall in love.
Well, it's not terribly cool, but we were both student teachers at Lord Byng High School, and that's how we met. We're both teachers.
And just kind of developed a connection from there. And
yeah, Lee had come from Ontario, and so he was new to Vancouver.
We had a mutual acquaintance.
We had a mutual acquaintance who was an old girlfriend of his. So I said, do you know Jennifer White? And the first words he said to me, oh yes, I was in love with Jennifer White for a long time. So, but you know, I say I'm a way better partner than Jennifer would have been. She was kind of boring, and I'm a lot of fun. Yeah, so we've been together 45 years or so. Yeah.
So we met through our friend. He was one of my clients because I'm a personal trainer. And then she became one of my clients.
So he was my personal trainer.
Yeah, so
it's a little scandalous, isn't
scandalous
it?
a little bit, but yeah, kept it professional as much as I could, but connection happened, and then it just kind of, overflowed from that point on.
We met 2 years ago and swiped right and hung out, and from the first date we just kind of clicked, and now we're engaged.
Okay, so I started using Tinder. I was like kind of ready after 2 years of taking a break of not seeing anyone or going on a date. I was like ready to go out and like just be adventurous, and I went on my first date, and that has been my last date, and I got married to that guy. So that's it.
We met at a beach club, and then from there it was kind of I don't know, it's kind of a cool magical story, to be honest.
As the saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, but not when it comes to your relationship, turns out. More on why you should always be working to improve your love life and your happiness. That's after the break. Stay with us. And thank you for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream. It is a very busy day, and it has been for certain businesses hoping to cash in on some Valentine's Day dollars. From restaurants to flower shops and chocolate shops, it's a comparable Christmas-like rush. But if you're paying more, there might be good reason. We hit up a chocolate shop in Prince George to talk about demand and costs.
It's our busiest day of the year. Sometimes we have about 20 to 30-minute lineups. Valentine's Day is probably the most last minute out of all our holidays, especially around 5 or 6 o'clock at night. There's quite a few people that forget it's Valentine's Day, and they'll still come in. We do same amount of sales of Christmas over the 30 days in 2 days. Inflation is impacting chocolate dramatically. We just calculated it, and we're up 34% on our cost of goods. For chocolate over last year. We're looking at things accordingly and trying to price everything for our customers at an affordable price. Apple sales have been up quite significantly over the last 6 months, and so we've also had the request for some of the more classic flavors such as chocolate and raisins and chocolates and peanuts. I think as people are reflecting coming out of COVID, and it's a trend throughout the comfort foods that people are looking for and reflecting back on.
Well, it is Valentine's Day, yes, and whether you're celebrating with your partner, friends, or perhaps not at all, love is in the air today. But even for those in fulfilling relationships, things can sometimes fall into a bit of a lull. So how do you maintain that happily ever after? Well, joining us with some answers, we hope, is Cameron Gordon. He's a psychology professor at Vancouver Island University. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Humans are naturally problem solvers. Does this ever get in the way of our love lives?
Well, I think it can if you're not paying attention to it, right? Our brains are very well designed to root out problems and solve them, and that gives us a great evolutionary advantage to be able to survive. But while our brains are great tools for survival, they don't necessarily promote happiness. The cool thing about our brain, though, is you can put effort into things and override its natural default. So if you really put effort into learning how to be happy and constructing happiness in your life, your brain responds to that.
That's an interesting point. I was just going to ask you about the tangibles. What are some takeaways, some practical measures people could take besides perhaps asking those questions, you think?
Yeah, well, I think putting some effort into date nights and planning fun events, it's very common for me to speak with couples who say, boy, when we first got together, we went out to concerts and did fun things. And then, we haven't done that for a long time. So I say, well, let's see if we can try to get back to that. I think it's also important, in some of my research, we've shown that when you are having fun, make sure that you're really savoring that experience, because you can get into the habit of maybe sitting down and having a nice dinner together, but thinking, well, what are we doing after this? And so I always want to encourage couples, hey, you're there with somebody that you really like. Don't worry about what's happening next. Just savor this moment. And you can use those opportunities to savor and enrich those experiences to generate a lot of gratitude for your partner too, which is easy to start taking somebody for granted when you've been together for a long time and shared life together. So consciously trying to build fun into your life that you can enrich with your full attention, and then let that fuel gratitude, I think, are three takeaway messages I'd like to share with viewers tonight.
Love that. Live in the moment. I think that can apply to many areas. Thank you so much for your insight today. You're looking at a live shot of Science World, all lit up with hearts for Valentine's Day. And it was a beautiful blue sky day today, but temperatures have returned to normal. We'll have the latest with your 5-day forecast coming up next.
We start dancing after our retirement. We try to treat each other as friends and try to understand each other.
Make you feel more closer to your partner. That's the best thing about the dancing.
When we dance, we feel so happy. How about you, Dennis? You happy?
Yeah, excellent. Through dancing, we know each other more.
So we have to communicate with each other through dancing. We have linked up together.
The rest of my life, I will keep dancing with her.
We want to keep my friendship forever. We take care of each other, so we can go for dancing all the time. Live happier and longer.
Hey, I'm Rohith Joseph. Vibin' is the new show all about discovering great new songs and fresh artists from across BC and beyond. Stream Vibin' on CBC Listen.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Time for a look at weather. Victor Paolo is here with the long-range forecast. And Victor, you predicted the beautiful sunshine that graced us for Valentine's, but still a bit of a chill in the air.
I am glad to report that it was another beautiful day of seasonal temperatures, not wildly above seasonal, not very low, just right, like my favorite stories, The Three Little Bears. Now, taking a look at what we're going to be expecting for the Vancouver region in regards to precipitation, well, we do know that there's going to be some rain coming this weekend, and this is exactly where it's going to be coming from. Now, as we get closer into your Thursday is going to be more of a cloudy day. Look at all of those clouds starting to fill the Vancouver region. You'll have some periods where the sun will be coming in, but it's not going to be as strong as it was today on Valentine's Day. Had a quick chat with Mother Nature. We had to have a little bit of a discussion as to when that rain will come. She said, you know what, Victor, I'll give you a sunny Valentine's Day, but you're going to have a rainy, cloudy rest of your day. So I said, you know what, that's a good, fair compromise. Now, here's your Thursday, and we're looking at trending temperatures over for the surrounding region. Well, the next 48 hours, like we did speak about, is going to be quite cloudy, and it's also going to have a little bit of rain coming in. And is it coming towards your weekend? Because here's your Friday as you look right around 8 o'clock closer to supper, and that system right there is going to be the one that's moving itself into where we're located. Now, a quick look at our 3 and 7 day forecast. Here's what we can anticipate for the area. Well, Thursday and Friday, as you can see, is going to be a mix of sun and cloud. And as we get over for your Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and your Wednesday, it's going to eventually be a sunny start to your next week. But in between all of this sun, well, got a bit of rain. Hope you all have yourselves a beautiful night, Vancouver. Happy Valentine's Day, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Victor. You as well. And that is your late news for this Wednesday, February 14th. For news anytime, anywhere, you can download the free CBC News app. And you can always find us online at cbc.ca/BC. Your next local newscast is on the early edition. That's on CBC Radio 1 starting tomorrow morning at 5. Thanks so much for being with us here on Valentine's. Have a great night.